Hi Beach class. So last week I asked you to have a recap of some of the science learning that you've already done in year 2 and some things that you learnt about in year 1 as well. Okay, so I asked you to recap the Super 6, the things that we know that plants, animals and humans all have to do, and we know that that proves that they are alive. I asked you to think about nutrition and the Eat Well plate. And I also asked you to think about different types of animals. So you might have been thinking about reptiles, mammals, fish. You might even have been thinking about herbivores, omnivores or carnivores, the different types of animals and how they're classified by what they eat. Okay. Today we're going to move that on a little bit and we're going to start learning about food chains. Okay. Now we know that animals and humans, we need to eat to survive, okay? We need to eat because that's where we get our energy from, okay? And we talked about the different foods that people need to eat to be healthy at the start of the year. And we've also discussed that different animals eat different things, just like they live in different habitats and they have different shelters. So we know that a herbivore will eat plants, we know that an omnivore will eat plants and animals, and we know that a carnivore will only eat other animals, it will only eat meat, okay? So we're going to have a look today at food chains and how the energy moves from one thing to another in a food chain, okay? So let's have a look at one together. This is a food chain that I've seen in my garden over the last few weeks. So it starts off with some grass, okay? There was some grass just happily growing away in the garden, very, very happy, until a very, very hungry snail came along and decided to eat the grass. So that meant that the energy that had been in the grass was now transferred into the snail. Okay, so there was some energy in the grass, but because the snail has eaten the grass, the snail has now got the energy. Now the snail was just minding its own business, but unfortunately a big scary blackbird came along and decided to gobble the snail up. So that meant that the energy that had been in the grass, that was now in the snail, was now in the blackbird, because the blackbird had eaten the snail. Okay, now we're going to learn 3 new fantastic science words, so pop your lab coats on, make yourself look like scientists. Looking fabulous. So the grass is the start of our food chain, okay, so we call that one the producer, and the producer is normally going to be some kind of plant. It could, if perhaps you were in a pond, it might be something like algae in a pond, or in the sea it might be something like seaweed, but it's got to be a plant. So you see the sign with me? Producer. Have a go. Producer. Fantastic. Now the next thing is the thing that's doing the eating, okay? It's consuming something. Just like when we're at school we consume our lunch or our snack at snack time, this is doing some consuming. So it's called the consumer. And I want you to pretend to do some eating. Consumer. Do it again. Consumer. Excellent. Now the very last one is kind of the big scary animal, so I want you to get your big scary faces out. This is our predator. Can you do your big scary predator face? Predator. Fantastic. So the energy moves along the food chain. It starts in the producer, moves into the consumer, and finally into the predator. Excellent. Now this food chain has got 3 parts to it, the grass, the snail and the blackbird, but some food chains are even longer, okay? So I'm going to leave my names here and I'm going to change the things that are in my food chain. And this is another food chain that I've seen in my garden over the last few weeks, and it's going to start with grass again. But this time, the grass does not get eaten by a snail. It gets eaten by a very, very hungry grasshopper. A very hungry grasshopper. So the grasshopper is now the consumer because it was eating the grass up. Okay. And the grasshopper was minding its own business, like very nice grasshoppers do. when a mouse came along, and the mouse ate the grasshopper. So the energy had travelled from the grass to the grasshopper to the mouse. And then something came along and ate the poor little mouse. It's a really big owl. Okay, and I'm just going to pop it down here so that you can see it. So the energy has now passed from the mouse to the owl. And that means that the owl is now our predator. It's the one that's looking for its prey, the thing that it has eaten. It looks for its prey and it gobbles it up. And the mouse is another consumer, okay, because it's done some eating because it gobbled up the grasshopper. Okay, so the energy has travelled from the grass to the grasshopper to the mouse to the owl. Okay, and your challenge this week is to come up with as many fabulous food chains as you can. Okay, so you could have a look in your garden, you could have a look when you're on a walk, you could maybe even find out the food chain that involves some of your favourite animals. Okay, now it doesn't really matter. I did do my first food chain going across from left to right, and I just did that because in our language we read from left to right, but you could do your food chain any way that you like. You could have it going from the top to the bottom, you could have it going from the bottom to the top, you could have it going from right to left, as long as your arrows point to show where the energy is travelling. Okay, now you're all really creative. You could draw some lovely pictures. I'm going to be honest, they're not my pictures, I had somebody else draw them for me, as I'm sure you've guessed in beach class. But you could draw some pictures. You could build your different animals using construction toys. You could pretend to be the different animals and take some photographs. You could even go out for a walk and take photographs of different animals that you see and turn those photographs into a food chain. Okay, but the important things to remember are a food chain shows us where the energy is going, where it starts and how it travels, where those creatures are getting their energy from. And we need to remember that the producer is the plant at the start that produces the energy. The consumer is the thing that does the eating. And the predator is kind of that last one that has to look for its prey. And that's its prey, the one that it has eaten. Okay? I can't wait to see all of your fabulous food chains. Please do email them to me. I'm really excited to see them. Well done for all of your hard work. You are all doing a fantastic job. I hope that you're all having a lovely time, and I can't wait to see you again soon. Take care.